Welcome to In Top Form.
Welcome.
And today we're going to discuss discovering the business version of night vision goggles using real-world field-tested force multipliers in your business, professional practice, and in life.
That's a long title.
It is, but it's a long one, but a good one. And people are wondering, like, what's that night vision goggle thing about? But before we do that, Somnath Sikdar, or Kwanjang Nim, if I may say so, the odds of that causing trouble
are high.
All right, so how should I refer to you then? Somnath?
Yeah.
Or as...
cool arse.
Well, that's where I was going. Yeah. Somnath appeared recently on an interview, and it's an Australian interviewer.
Right.
So in the promotional things I saw, what did they call him again? One cool arse?
Cool arse. So something's being lost in translation.
Somnath
between Australia
Dragon Master.
Somnath the Dragon Master, one cool
arse. Yeah,
arse.
That's fabulous. So for the listeners / viewers today, in addition to one cool arse, we have back one of the founding co-hosts, Alex Reeves. And then would you guys like to introduce yourself? We are two amazing, awesome guest co-hosts in the
Well, we shouldn't say co-host because Pat might get a little full of himself.
Yeah, no, it's...
I saw that.
It's not raised me up too much.
We all saw that.
Well,
I'll be running the show by myself.
Yeah.
So you know.
Well, that's strangely, that's actually sort of true.
That's our plan.
We do have a plan. So I won't waste too much time in introductions. You've seen me before. Pat Flynn, glad to be back.
Well, that's just too little.
It's too little.
So Pat I'm referring to you now universally as the consummate generalist.
Oh, I like that.
You
know what? That's a good term because I've been trying to come up with a term that is above the expert
Yeah, the
generalist.
consummate.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the consommé generalist who makes lots of different consommes.
Sure.
Which some might consider a specialist. But And I just want to remind everybody that you're going to have a book coming out probably next year.
Well, about a year from now. So fall 2018. My deadline for the book is like 3 days from now.
Yeah.
So crunch time, but should be completed, and then you have the year of the publisher doing all their marketing.
And in that regard, we discovered that you and my buddy Perry Marshall share a publisher.
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah, small world.
And then Alex,
I
let
look
us
like
know
an
a little
angel.
bit about you, besides the fact that you're a giant fan of gluten-free matzah.
Yeah. Well, I'm Alex, also known as the Hebrew Hammer, alexsalkin.com. And good friends with Pat, good friends with Sam, and excited to be here on the show today. And we'll probably leave it right there.
So these guys, so the three of us were at an event in the desert known as Business Black Ops, and we explored there basically business versions of force multipliers. So for everybody listening in that hasn't maybe heard this before, I'll define a little bit what they are. And then because you guys had a conflict, you weren't there, but you know a lot of what we do. And so we'll talk about it a little bit, and you leap in and interrogate us on anything you need more information about. So force multipliers generally, and this is where the title of today's show came from, the business version of night vision goggles. So a force multiplier is either something that you've trained in, like a particular skill or a methodology of training people to be bigger, stronger, faster, or a technology like night vision goggles that takes the resources you already have and makes them more powerful. And so the obvious example of this in the military is night vision, where if you equip an operator with night vision and they can choose to engage at night, they're going to be, I think night vision is considered to be like a 5 times force multiplier. So it's expanding your ability to fight the enemy by a factor of 5, which is pretty strong. And then these things all sort of layer and synergize one another. So Pat, like you've said this to me before, that a lot of generalists build these skill sets, which when you stack them in this unique way, are more powerful than any individual one.
Yeah, sort of a 1 + 1 = 3.
And that's how these force multipliers work. So if you carefully select, so if you use a methodology of selecting special forces operators and then training them to weed them out so that you have these really expert operators, and you equip them with night vision, that's going to be a 20 or 50 times force multiplier. They're going to be able to defeat a vastly, apparently superior force because they have all of those advantages. So we're constantly trying to identify in what we're doing, but also bringing in clandestine people involved in clandestine service, special forces operators, people involved in the military who used force multipliers when they were in the military or in clandestine service, and then continue to use them when they come out and they're in business. So we're constantly working through getting people to identify these things, because a lot of people, when they learn them, they sort of take them for granted and they disappear into the background. They're not consciously aware that they're doing it anymore. So we've kind of perfected a process of interrogating those people and getting down to the granular level. So this is interesting. In your book, do you find that? Do you find that people who are generalists have skill sets that kind of disappear or are invisible to them, or are generalists more aware of them than specialists?
No, I think that for anybody, certain skills can kind of rotate out and rotate in. And your job is a generalist, and it's always going to vary because in different stages of your business, you're trying to do different things at different times. And a skill that was useful once might not be as useful anymore. Some skills are, I like, for example, here you've differentiated skills and technologies and things like that. And I think that'll be an interesting way to lead the discussion. Because, for example, some technologies you can take some time to set in place now, and then they become a force multiplier since you don't have to worry about it again. Or there's certain business assets that take a lot of time to build, but then it's like an automated email sequence, for example. I would consider that a force multiplier. You build it once, and then you can forget about it in some ways, and then it's there, it's working for you. But as for skills, yeah, I think there's a few essential skills that if any of these skills as force multipliers start to slide, you're going to notice right away. But most of these skills are also pretty sticky in the sense it's kind of hard to lose these skills too. It's very vague. Writing would be a good example. So if we're talking about skills that are force multipliers, I think if you just go in on writing and learn to write well, not even exceptional, just not as terribly badly as most people, but if you can just learn to write tolerably well.
Yeah.
Talk about a force multiplier. Just a tiny bit better. Which, again, like talk about a little tweak that makes a major difference. I would say as far as skills go, writing is one of those that will create a great advantage for you in your copywriting, in your emails, in your advertisements. There's no way that being a better writer isn't going to be a force multiplier in your business.
Yeah, so we call those meta force multipliers. It's these sort of like super big picture things or skills that inform all the other things. So marketing is a major force multiplier. There's a couple of things that make you a way better marketer. Like if you just become a little better at writing, you become a little bit more disciplined. Where like discipline is a meta level force multiplier. So we say, here are these meta level force multipliers. Here's some strategic force multipliers, really understanding them. That's why I would place marketing at that level. And then the marketing generally, because it's big leverage. You know, you could spend a few dollars and get a lot of people to come in. And if you're using your marketing really strategically, which is that you're appealing to people who will spend more money with you on higher margin things where they'll end up more satisfied, then you can make a lot of money with a little spend. But as you say, if you just learn to write a little bit better, a little bit more often than everybody else, and then you learn a couple of these communications, like we always say, enhanced communication skills generally, not just in written word, but in how we speak and engage with people. If you learn to deploy those as well, then you're going to have a gigantic, even though you're only a little better than everybody else in those areas, you're going to have this gigantic advantage. So we're going to explore a series of meta-level force multipliers, strategic level force multipliers, and tactical. So you alluded to a tactical one in there that you and Alex, I think, have become pretty expert at using. And Sam and I rely on advice from you guys, but we get it, which is that you use, but you may say I'm wrong about this, but they both use automation in a more facile and effective way than I do. So by automation, I mean you're going to create, once you get some emails and some themes and some ideas that work and that really appeal to your customers, then you create, in some cases, very elaborate email sequences or other ways of engaging them and driving them to a landing page and things like that. So, here, I haven't shared this with you guys yet, but I'm carrying it with me. Memento Mori.
Is that one of those Seneca coins?
It's a Seneca coin. Yeah. So just as a reminder, it's in my pocket every day, reminding me I could die today.
Any second, right now.
Yeah, which would be fabulously interesting for the viewers.
It would definitely go viral.
And Alex would, because I still have a lot of life insurance, so Alex would become, well, Mom would control it all. So you'd have to be nice to her. But that is, like, the Memento Mori is actually
Just the silent nod.
Memento Mori is sort of a meta-level force multiplier
Sure.
for me. Because we all have, and it helps me with the meta-level force multiplier of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about this the other day, but I'm curious. So, do you write? Are you a writer, Bob?
He's got a
book too?
degree in it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd be curious to get everybody's view on this. I think it was the Somerset Maugham quote where they asked him, like, do you write to, at a particular time in a disciplined way, or do you write when the muse moves you?
Yeah.
And he said, I write when the muse moves me, which is every day at 9 a.m.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
I just wrote about that in the book. Actually, I say that the creativity is a reward for diligence.
Yes, that's it. That's a beautiful way of putting it. So you write to like the disciplined chunks.
Yes.
Can you describe? Because I think this is a major force multiplier for anybody in business, whether they're going to use it in marketing or producing content that educates.
Yep.
So can we each describe our process on this? I think that'd be useful to people.
Yeah, just go down the line. So for me, writing is the most important part of my business, especially since I'm doing the book right now. So whatever is the most important part of my life or business right now, which isn't always writing.
But I would say
that,
it's followed closely by your lush.
by the
hair,
Jesus hair.
growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then I go see my stylist. But right now is...
I'm sorry, did I break your train of
You
thought?
did.
We're talking about it this way. I feel good
Now
about
I'm
it.
thinking about my stylist. Yeah. So, whatever's most important to me, whatever skill I'm working on the most, I don't want to say I do it first thing in the day, but I do it when I'm most energetic,
Mhm.
which for me is the first thing in the day. But that might vary for different people. So every morning I'm up around 5:36 and I write till about 10:30, 11. And that hasn't changed.
Now,
for,
when you
for
say
years.
you're up, you don't mean in the evening, right? You're waking up.
No,
in the morning.
AM. Yeah. So.
It's worth clarifying.
Yeah. And I know some people do that.
Yeah,
Some people
yeah.
like to write with a glass of wine at night, and that's their best time. That's probably my worst time. So my best time is the early morning. I try to get up between 5:30 and 6. And like I said, creativity is a reward for diligence. So I don't start to have good ideas until I'm probably an hour into it.
Mhm.
So I think a mistake people make when it comes to any type of creative work is they just quit way too soon, way too early. I can say almost 9 times out of 10, I don't have anything that's worth saving or worth publishing until I've been at work for about an hour.
A lot of times people say that to me when they're looking at things while I write. Just there's nothing worth saving there.
Just scratch it off. Well, they say one good trick for like how do you find a good opening lead to a chapter? Well, delete the first 3 paragraphs.
That's good. So
But it goes to show like there's a warm up period before the muse arrives.
that is a good, and I try to get that out of the way with some other exercises, but I think we're doing the same thing.
Sure.
On the issue of energy, I should admit to everybody watching that just before the show, I thought I would pump myself full of a spray vitamin D, winter sunshine, and instead I picked up the Onnit spray melatonin, which I'm very sensitive to. So I'm falling
Mike,
conscious.
you-
So you could leave life right now.
That
Yeah.
Memento Mori coin was not for
Yeah.
nothing.
Exactly. Alex, is your practice different than?
In a few details, yeah, but for the most part, it's kind of the same. The most important thing is that you just get the wheels moving, and then you can start to guide it once you start to pick up a bit more speed. But I think that waiting for the muse to strike, people who are going to do that are also more likely to wait until they feel like working out, wait till they feel like growing their business. It's just not the way to get ahead. You have to commit to it. Recognize that it's not going to be fun, but that's not also the job of writing or these other things. It becomes enjoyable when you start to achieve something, and the only way to do it is to have some sort of a structure, discipline yourself to keep going, and accept that you're going to be bad at it for quite a while, and if it's worth it to you, it's worth it to be bad at it until you can do it well. And as far as writing is concerned, for me, it's very similar to Pat. I mean, like, I'm not great at writing later in the evening, so I don't spend most of my time trying to do that. It's usually, roll out of bed, do a short morning routine, and then just get right to it.
So I'll just add something quickly because I have some practice that's very similar to yours, and I'm bad at it. I will get a second wind at like 9 or 10, but then I can't get to sleep till late, and I wake up pretty early right now as part of my discipline. The other thing I do is I've created a series of frameworks, and I'm curious whether, as we get to you guys, whether you use them, So there are ways that I write, depending on what it is that I'm trying to do, and there are types of stories that I have a basic framework for. I do the same thing with, advertising as I do with content writing. Mm-hmm. And so that helps me to get started, like you were talking about. Getting started is always hard. So I'm never sitting there, ever, looking at a blank page. I mean, I might be, but I've already decided on what the framework is, so I kind of know how it's going to start, what it's going to look like in the middle, and how it's going to wrap up. And I've organized those frameworks around things that work. So by that I mean if I'm writing long-form copy that's designed more to spark curiosity than it is to educate, I have a couple of ways of doing it. And then the more I do it and the more I see which one of those work best, I tend to adopt those. So if I'm writing a purely educational piece, I have a different way of judging, did this work? And my way of judging that is, did the people who read it, or do the people I talk to about it using this framework, do more and more of them do something different? Mm-hmm. And if I see that, then I start using the framework over and over again. Usually there's enough variation that nobody says, hey, looks like something that you wrote before. Mm-hmm. Frameworks? Or
it depends on what I'm using. If I'm doing a sales letter, I almost exclusively use an AIDA framework, mm-hmm. Attention, interest, decision, or desire, action, and that's good because it keeps. When it comes to writers, it seems like there's two types. There's the people who really like to outline and sketch out everything ahead of time, and then there's those who really like to write by the seat of their pants. I'm the latter.
I'm the latter as well.
I definitely, once I start going, I figure it out as I go, and then the form emerges. If I sit and I spend too much time on the form beforehand, I tend to get in my own way. So I found, for me specifically, is I have a point in mind that I want to make. So right. That's important. You can't just not have something to say. So here's what I want to say. Here's the point I want to get across. And then I just start hacking away at it. And eventually it's like, I think of it kind of like a marble statue. Eventually the thing that I want to emerge starts to emerge. Mm-hmm. And okay, now this makes sense to me. Now that terrifies a lot of people because a lot of people need an outline or a framework. And that's fine. I don't say that's wrong. That's why I say there's usually, if you read a lot of books on writing, they will typically differentiate these two approaches. And some people will take a different approach. They'll start from, say, the middle of their assignment and work in both directions that way too, which is interesting. But that's mine. I tend to discover my message by hacking away at it.
Those people become serial killers, I think.
You would think, yeah.
Yeah, and they're writing manifestos.
That's very dangerous.
Yeah,
that's
very
dangerous.
If anybody watching the Facebook Live or listening to the podcast feels that you have just described them, you should go to the police now before more people are hurt.
Yourself in.
Yeah. So, Alex, you write a lot.
On that, Alex,
you write a lot.
It's interesting when the topic of sociopathy comes up. I get scared.
Well, we're going to ease back in. So you write a lot, and you write lots of different kinds of things. Anything to add to those three ways of doing it so far?
Yeah, I think we take it for granted as thinking about it as marketers and as writers, but we always have to think, at least I do, is from a starting point of what are the driving emotions behind the people that are going to be reading it, and playing into those in a way that's effective. And then also starting with, for me, especially for sales copy or ad copy, doing some kind of like before and after scenario. So what is their situation right now, and what do they want their situation to be? And then how do you write copy that kind of wraps that into the actions that you want them to
So that's another very useful framework, I think. And if anybody's wondering, like, hey, what happened to business black ops? This is the kind of thing that we're actually doing there. We're trying to identify at a meta level, we try to get people to think about what is it that I want my business and my life to look like. So what's the vision? That's going to be largely unchanging for people. What are the values that they want to drive their behaviors and things like that? Those will be largely unchanging. And then we get to the mission, which is over the next 6 months or 2 years or 3 years, whatever the framework is. What does that look like? What are my goals? What are the systems I'm going to build to achieve them? What are the KPIs I'm going to use to measure them? And once we've got that piece done, then we help them with this piece. What are the big picture skill sets, technologies, force multipliers of any kind that we can deploy? So I love that we're spending some time on this because everybody's got a little bit different way of doing it. And for me, I often still hear people describe something that they do in their process or some force multiplier that I'll try out and I've never tried before, and it works better for me than what I was doing. So, Sam, you want to add to that? Because you're writing
Besides
a lot
the
more.
sociopathy.
Yeah, I mean, no, don't feel that you have to go beyond that. You can spend time on that.
Okay, thanks, appreciate that. No, I you know, and for those of you guys that know me, it's like I thrive on routine.
Dragon Master, you mean?
Yes. And that idea of being routinized and, you know, eliminating opportunities for discipline fatigue. You know, we had that argument at BBO.
With Jocko. We had that argument with a super dangerous Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Commander Jocko.
Look, you got to pick your battles. I chose poorly.
I mean, you could have fought Tyson, but no. I'm going right for the big guns.
Yeah, so I guess we'll meet again.
Yes, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mentioned to Jocko that we're coming to the gym.
Nice.
And he said, fine.
Yeah. Not good. Fine.
Not fine.
So, you know, being routinized for me helps in all aspects of just productivity. But like, unlike you guys where you can get up and be creative early, that doesn't work for me. I need to sort of like declutter in some way. And that may be like literally cleaning, or it may be just knocking down some of the low
I just
hanging.
want to clarify. Was that cleaning like a gun or the house or your desk? Any of those will work.
Any would work actually. And
we talk about these kinds
Do
of
you
things.
wear rubber gloves?
How about you?
the nice velour gloves.
Yeah, Alex and I, just to interrupt for a second.
We had a weird situation.
Yeah, we had a situation this morning. We run a luminaria that covers about a mile in this whole neighborhood at Christmas Eve. And not to, Alex, to trigger you, but
So far, not
Alex is like,
triggered, but you are talking about guns. So
Dude,
triggers are
I'm
certainly
sitting in
good.
front of a Christmas tree. It's all fine. So we were delivering all of the sand and candles and the accoutrement of luminarianating. And I was coming down the street and I saw a man wearing blue latex gloves standing in front of Alex and a t-shirt. It was like 28 degrees, just standing in front of the car.
It was more like this.
Staring, yeah.
Totally normal.
Yeah. So I'd like to know more about that. But sorry, Sam. Go ahead.
So anyway, the idea of like if you have clutter in your mind, is I need to clear that off first. So that may be just, you know, knocking down some like low hanging fruit tasks to get those out of the way so they're not, you know, nagging, and that opens up space for me to be creative. And I'm also a big believer in momentum. So that momentum of getting things done helps propel me through the creative process.
Yes, so we put momentum, by the way, in the class of metaforce multipliers, which is find out how you get momentum going. Now, I'm curious, this is, and Sam and I are constantly doing this to our listeners/viewers. We tell them, like, momentum is really important and stopping is really important. Right. So at first, they seem like diametrically opposed. But you want to use momentum and you want to get into a discipline of creating it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of writers and business people, I think, find utility in stopping while they're hot and the drive to complete this. Because then you come back to it, you're like, oh, I had to
Well,
finish.
also is like I know I thrive on routine, but breaking the routine also is another stimulus for creativity. Like by, you know, going to a remote location for a mastermind, for example, doing something out of the norm, getting out of your comfort zone will also be a way to, you know, sort of stimulate your creative process.
Yeah. I like the idea of stopping in some ways preserves momentum. We bring it back to writing. One of the best tips I ever got for making sure you don't have writer's block is to leave off mid-sentence and whatever you were writing the day before.
Exactly.
So you can just, next day you pick up the thread and you don't have to think about what you're going to say because you were already saying it before.
It's a lot easier to stay on stuff than to get on stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a saying that I like that a river with a dam has more power.
Ooh, you guys are full of
Proverbials.
little powerful little tidbits this morning. So, producer Leslie, do we have anybody that we need to address?
Yeah, we have lots of people with us today. So,
is anybody triggered so far?
nobody is triggered so
Have they
far.
triggered
So I
one
think
another?
they're all.
My email upset a few people today.
Awesome.
Yeah, which is that's a good thing. I think we talk about force multipliers too. I think personality itself is a huge force multiplier. I think being a lukewarm person is, especially if you're running.
Because
a
people
tight
accuse me of that.
Yeah, sure. Like Dave, he doesn't. Really,
Dave.
he's not really outspoken.
Together all the time.
This and that. And I think people are so afraid of being liked by everybody that they end up being, pretty much indifferent to everybody. So, I always can tell when I've written an effective email because I'll have two very opposing voices. Now, the supportive side has gotten larger and larger and larger and larger over time because I've gotten better at refining and targeting my audience
people are,
and weeding out the other people. But, if I still do it right.
You still refer to them as the turds?
As a
No,
turd,
I've
whatever.
never done that.
So people were offended by everything. You say Christmas, somebody's upset.
Yeah.
Which was an example in today's email. I threw out a few other insults too.
Nice.
But the point, I think the point I'm trying to drive at is within writing, making sure, they say so many people ask, what style is? Style is just getting censorship out of the way. Fundamentally, style is when
there's another one. These guys are on
Yeah.
fuego.
There we go. So I think most people are blocking their own style because they're ashamed or afraid of what their personality actually
Do
is.
you have anyone write in and critique your copy?
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
have that all the time.
Yeah, no, yeah. There's always that the gracious grammarian who will write in about these emails. It's like today's email. So we talk about warming up and getting started, right? So today's email was kind of my writing. That's what I use my daily email as my writing warm up, which is an exercise in copy.
And apparently to vent and attack people.
Yeah.
Which is
So,
beautiful.
yeah.
Don't misunderstand me. I'm not being critical of that. I'm thinking about adopting it.
Well, the truth is the person who's going to write in because they're upset that you said Christmas, or you put, you forgot an apostrophe here or there. I can't think of an instance where that person was also a customer.
Yeah, you know why? Because if people know and they trust you.
Yeah.
Then and this is the thing we talk about. This is a major force multiplier. When you've built real trust with people and have real personality and you're interesting and they're addicted to getting good information from you and finding out that it's useful in their life, they don't care about. It's not that they don't care about an apostrophe, but they go, "Oh, there's an apostrophe missing," but they move on.
Yeah, they don't. Yes, they don't. So there was one funny time when I was talking about a product of a friend of mine's. It was called Ultimate Athleticism, and I was promoting it. And I kept calling it on accident. I didn't know I was doing this. This is always proofread, and of course I proofread it again. I kept calling it Ultimate Atheism.
Which is
so
again,
people wrote in graciously about that, and I thank them. So proofreading is important, and we're getting off on a tangent here. But it's also, you have to kind of weigh the importance. If I sat around and I refined my emails for hours and hours and I went through draft after, I would never be an effective email marketer.
Mm-hmm.
Some things are better done sooner, even if they're imperfectly. The book, on the other hand, that's worth spending some time on. So there's a kind of a hierarchy of how deeply you should refine and process things like writing.
Well, you're on another meta force multiplier, which we should talk about, which is developing processes so that you eventually know, okay, this is important to spend time on.
Mm-hmm.
This is less important. It's more important to get it done.
Yes.
And that this is a tactical thing that will likely have more positive effect, even if it's imperfect. And this is a big strategic thing that requires more thoughtfulness.
Mm-hmm.
But being self-aware of what you're good at and bad at, too, I found, is a major meta-level force multiplier. Professor Leslie. Wanted to say producer, or librarian Leslie. Can they see you with this whole librarian look?
They can, and I actually have this is behind my head, so look very angelic. So I'm like the angelic librarian.
But they can. Oh, angelic librarian.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to talk about what I'm thinking now.
I was gonna say
Angelic librarian.
Buster.
She mentioned Buster.
Buster. I am not a good whisperer.
You smell good.
Let's take a break here for one of our sponsors, me. So I wanted to share this with you guys. So when people come to the event, they get lots of things.
They get
right?
many things.
But two things that they get, and I think you could speak to this one.
Mm-hmm.
Every year we produce a book
Yep.
that's got a series of articles in it. Oh, and we had lock picking in here this year. I'll interrupt my own story. Not that I do that.
No.
It's not disturbing to anybody. I went through customs. I was going to say, yeah, customs on the way to Arizona.
Yeah.
TSA, and in my carry-on bag, I had this box with 40 locks in it and 40 sets of lock picks encased in tiny, mocked up to look like a credit
cards that say James Bond.
Which is and everybody learned to pick locks.
That's true.
And it was a good metaphor. Oh, there we go, too. That'll bring you back.
And red string from South Asia.
Yeah, we colted it up this year. Yeah. But that's a different story. When I got through, I don't think I should interrupt the second story with the third story. Not that I have a moral objection.
Podcast isn't the place to do that.
Well, I don't know. People are driving, you're saying. Maybe you don't want to get them too
worked up.
Yeah.
Steve Richardson could be.
So my point here is the woman at TSA that was running the X-ray machine just looked up and she saw 40 locks and 40 sets of lock picks, and she just went like this, and I said, "Yeah, come on," and then they waved.
Comforting.
But then when we got there, everybody learned to pick locks from this awesome resource, the CIA lockpicking manual. That's very useful. I mentioned the lockpicking in a little piece for you.
Mm-hmm.
So what this is, now you use this, which I love. You use this year round.
I do.
Can you describe to people how to use this resource?
So this is a man. Well, it's not quite your field manual, but it's the textbook for the annual event. So it has interviews that you've done, resources that you've aggregated. There's some swipe and deploy type of stuff in here. So as I'm going through the year and developing marketing materials, I'm using this as a dictionary or a thesaurus of sorts to go back, jog my memory or see.
Or if you need to get into your neighbor's house.
Well, yeah,
and you're rusty. You're an influencer. I mean, and you, like all of you guys are. You use a lot of this then as a model for content that you would use on your own.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So for people who are watching that have sort of a following or a platform of their own, we would love to see you there.
Well, and that's part of what we do is it's not just this is how you market,
right? But
we learn the process of creating marketing, right? So it's not just the tactical; it's the strategy, and then like the VIP event. You have your whiteboarding system, but it's also the kind of the underlying foundation and the whys behind the system that you're educating us on, so then we can go back and apply it either to our own businesses or our subordinates in the business so that they can continue that down the chain.
So this is a 3-day event, but we add a 4th day, which is a VIP event with a small group of people where we whiteboard through their whole process. So most of them are picking a product or a service that's going to be really valuable for them to explode that. And then we whiteboard, okay, who's buying it from you now? What are the value propositions? When somebody calls and you answer the phone, what's the script sound like? What's the process? What are the automated email sequences? In this case, we have, like, in that business, in the business of bringing people to Business Black Ops, I'll cover your address, Alex. But this is a...
I'm not Dave Braxton. We can't share that information.
Who is on?
This is a monthly newsletter that they get to. Do you guys use any? Is all your communication done online in your business?
It is. You know, I originally I did my membership was print.
Mm-hmm.
Had some technical difficulties. Went back to digital and have considered print since, but haven't quite.
It's been good to me in multiple businesses. So this is a Business Black Ops monthly mission and intelligence briefing. So this is what they get. So each month, I don't know, 30, 40 pages of pretty useful stuff. So obviously, I'm not trying to write where everything is for everybody, but I'm writing so that hopefully everybody has 2 or 3 things out of here. So you've got 2 of these.
Yep.
How do you use those?
I usually use it's.
I haven't read them yet.
Well, yeah. You know. Well, I don't have to read them because you read them to
To
me.
you? I did literally read you the last one, which was not embarrassing at all for me. It was because I was trying to catch like the atheism stuff I do too, Pat.
The
So,
ultimate.
the ultimate atheist. So here's in this briefing contents. It's a monthly message to the BBO founding, introductory, and warlord level members.
Yeah.
Now, so let's talk about this technique. For me, a meta level force multiplier is I love using curiosity, the Zarganic effect, or a little bit of danger, something, 2 things that are incongruous, because I find biologically humans are programmed to pay attention to that and stay riveted to that until they're sure that there's not danger. And if you read this article, you will not be sure there's not danger.
Yes.
There's a double negative in there. How to use the Business Black Ops monthly briefing. How Ty uses the Business Black Ops and how you should too. So I have a member tell me something that he did with it, and then I'm reproducing that for people as a way of getting them to think about using this in a new way. I'm particularly fond of this, although you might have to beep me, Professor.
That's okay.
Deep analysis and case study of real-world persuasion, influence, and defeating an enemy. Strategies and tactic for instant and radically improved field-tested advertising, content persuasion. Warning: I have this in red. Hopefully, this doesn't trigger you out. This case study contains loads of techniques, swipe suggestions, field notes, and non-sexual references to nipples, the female breast, male overreaching, race and gender issues, and involves 2 warring factions of women. You've been warned. Read that.
Can I take this home with me?
Yes, I'm going to get you a copy of that.
And which word in there needed to be beeped?
So
You choose.
then I have a monthly swipe file. So this is something that's easy. Yeah, you can bleep whichever one, which I'm assuming is warring. I put warring factions in quotation marks. I always am on the lookout for interesting quotes. So I might have to quote you now for this. And then I have an operative and operator because they're different levels of membership. Health and fitness. Yours truly over here at Bryce Those. Updated schedule. So we have the schedule of all the coaching calls because we provide like telephone coaching calls. Secure access numbers for members, warlord level, Business Black Ops news and member profiles and field notes. So sometimes what people do out in the field. And then anxious about speaking, a meeting, anything, use the I'm excited hack, which is super good. Are you familiar with this? I saw a video from an article in The Atlantic, and there's they were interviewing a researcher on this, and so I think Sam and I, you and I have always sort of, if we feel anxiety or anger or fear bubbling up, we sort of calm it down a notch. This hack is you simply say to yourself, I'm excited. And it's a reframe of what are essentially the same biochemical elements of the emotion. Like anxiety and fear are very similar to getting excited. So rather than have the negative frame around what you're feeling, it puts a positive frame around it. So it maintains the energy. Now, I would say that some of the techniques that you and I use to calm down would still be useful if you were getting too angry or excited or fearful. But if you catch it early on, and you want to keep the excitement of the emotion. So this is really cool. And I will get you guys a copy.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
One of the other things I do here is every month we have like something in particular that's going on or a video I've produced. So we give people, access to that too. And we're obviously setting that off. So it's kind of like the card that drops out of, I don't know, for me, it'd be like Cosmo. I could subscribe.
You're a big Cosmo reader.
I'm a big Cosmo reader. I'm actually quite shocked. Have you ever read Cosmo? Professor Leslie? You have?
I have.
And do you still to this day?
No.
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 When did you quit?
Seems
When did
so
you quit?
strange.
How long has it been since the last time you were
I'm trying to think of a PG way to say this. I think I was probably. I think the last time I looked was maybe 20.
Okay, that makes sense. to me.
Yeah.
Now, it's not because my demographic is 20 and below women.
Yeah.
It is definitely not. Although every now and then a weird surge occurs in that one that we see in Insights.
That's on In Top Form. Our main demographic
That's
on
more
Instagram
understandable.
is like 15 to 18-year-old women.
Disturbing.
It's weird.
That's weird.
That's
Yeah.
super disturbing. Okay, but
Sam's
the
the
reason
one who
is,
posts everything. So I don't know what he's doing with the hashtags.
well, I interrupted myself and lost my train of thought. But the
Good thing Roy Moore's not here.
Roy Moore would want to date that segment of
Yeah,
our.
date your daughter.
I'm the local district attorney. Did that trigger you out?
No, thank you.
I
Still
call him-
untriggered.
I love that guy, Roy Moore. I call him Judge. Oh my! What are the odds that we've triggered people?
I'm
by
glad we
saying
started
that?
this with, and now let's hear from our sponsor, me.
We're still on an ad,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
let's
this
wrap.
has been the longest mid-podcast ad I've ever witnessed.
Let's wrap up by saying it's not that I read Cosmo because I want to appeal to 20-year-old women, but they have the best blurb writers in the world doing those covers.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to take those blurbs from the cover and to create formulas. I probably stopped reading Cosmo when I was a 36-year-old man, but that was because I had exhausted the formulas that they use very successfully.
Sure.
But Cosmo got better at it. I save all the covers of Cosmo because I used to lecture on this, and I wrote an article which was hugely popular called "How I Made More Than $1 Million with a $9.95 subscription to Cosmo," which is absolutely true. But I used to keep all the Cosmo covers, and I would give this talk, and I showed how Cosmo got better at it because it was like, I want to say a cover in '68 or something like that was like, hysterectomy, it's bad, or something like that. Obviously, they got better. Pat's just looking at me like, okay.
I'm waiting for the tie-in.
No, Cosmo. We were on Cosmo. I'm closing the loop.
There's no need for
Are we
tie-in.
still in the
The
ad?
loop was so big.
You're so lost.
Let me give the number. Anyway.
Yeah.
Because
I don't want to mess up. I don't want to.
Ask for Lisa.
I don't want to
Here we
interject
go.
right before the sales pitch.
That was the sales.
No, but they have to act. So if you do want to come to live event, or you do want to get the newsletter, which I gotta say, as one of the authors of it, is phenomenal.
And there's at least one good section.
It's the physical fitness piece. No, I'll let you guys come back on and tell me what you think after you've read it.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'd love to.
But if you want to be a newsletter subscriber, you could just get the newsletter. And if you want to come to the event, you could get the event for free by becoming a founding member. And what number do you call, Alex? I was having trouble remembering.
610-933-8069. You ask for Lisa.
Yeah, and she'll vet you. We don't just let anybody in.
Mhm.
It's fantastic. And Lisa's not like you know her. Is she a pushover?
No.
She's going to grill
She
you.
keeps us all in line.
So we did an ad, and then I told people if they do call, it'll be horrible for them.
Yeah.
And the ad was like 17 minutes long. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. Just think of it as a grand experiment.
Well, yeah, it's like testing long form sales copy in the middle of a podcast.
Merry Christmas.
To myself.
Oh my Lord. Let's get back to force multipliers. And I'm sorry to say, gents, that we're back to this end. So we've been talking about any other meta force multipliers in your business. So something either that affects the way you think about getting things done, or a strategic force multiplier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you said marketing to me is a strategic force multiplier, or a tactical force multiplier, which might be using infusion, for example.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah, I think on a very tactical level, I think advertising is a really big one, and this was a force multiplier for me because before I started advertising, like most content creators, I was cranking out content, something new every day. What advertising lets you do is create a few pieces of flagship content that you can then send on a tour, so to speak. So it's the difference of being a band that has to put on a new show every night in the same venue and hope new people come, which they may or may not, versus taking the same show, which you've already mastered, and bringing it around the country. So that's how advertising has been a force multiplier for me. So I can, and I still do both. I still create fresh new content, and then whatever gets the best traction, I'm like, okay, this one probably deserves a little more attention or it got more sales. I can then now force more eyeballs onto that.
And I love this. So advertising as a strategic force multiplier. I would say it's strategic, and then particular ways of doing it might be tactical.
Like
so,
Facebook, for example.
Yeah. So could you dig into an example? Could you think of something where you said, okay, I've developed a product or a service. I'm rolling it out. I've proven it. Now I'm going to advertise it because I've figured out what the ad needs to say to attract eyeballs. Is that kind of your process?
Yeah, I mean, you can use it in a number of different ways. I mean, a lot of people are always curious of how to build an email list. So one thing is create a few flagship pieces of content or articles that really arouse curiosity, grab attention, provide a lot of value, and then push to some type of opt-in. So I do that.
You advertise the work.
Yes.
Give us an example.
Yeah. So there's
there's
there's two ways that this can work when it comes to building an email list, and advertising is a force multiplier in either way. So you can create some type of direct opt-in. For me, I have a 101 kettlebell workouts guide, for example. We've talked about this before.
Yep.
So I can advertise directly to that, and that does really well.
And you'd advertise. You're talking about pay-per-click either on Facebook. Or
Yeah,
Google.
Facebook. You can advertise the website 101. The number is kettlebellworkouts.com. That's one way. The second way, which was more I was talking about before, is you create certain pieces of content to position that and yourself as a gatekeeper or a middle person, right? And the reason that's valuable, you might not get as many people onto your email list that way, but they'll have passed through a filtering process. So the people you do get will typically be more tuned in, more likely to actually open your emails, want to read your emails, etc. So that's where that can be really worthwhile.
So let's break that down into a tiny bit more detail. Did you do that process for 101 kettlebell?
Yeah, I do it for both.
So what might be a couple of things? So are you talking about blog content?
Yeah, I'll give you a good
video?
example. Yeah, blog content. Something you could do is I could write a blog on 7 high intensity fat blasting kettlebell workouts, for example. I think that's exactly one that I've done before, and I can talk about generalism, which is the philosophy I use within fitness and also above fitness, and why being a generalist in fitness is the best way to go, and here's a way that we can get tactical with that. Give them 7 examples of what a generalist fitness workout routine might look like. Hey, if this is really resonating with you, if you're liking this, I've got 101 more here. So then a call to action at the end of the thing.
But 101 more is no reference to Ray Moore.
No,
Okay.
no. I have since strongly disassociated.
You disavow.
I renounce the Lord. So that's a good example. So that way they have a good sense of what they're going to be getting before they actually go to get it, which I'm a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
I think the more you can manage and set expectations for people along the way, the better your results are going to be, and the less money you're going to waste. So
yeah, because having giant lists that aren't buying from you is a waste of management energy and resources that it takes to send emails even to them.
Yeah, and there's a little hidden content piece there, and we can talk about some of the strategic things in doing. But if you advertise a really good article and it is valuable and sexy, people will share that too. It will increase in viral activity as well. So
They'll share the link, or they'll share the ad.
well, they'll share the article. They can share the ad too, which is always
Right,
fun on
absolutely.
Facebook when you see people sharing the actual ad itself.
Mhm.
Then you're doing something interesting. Might not be effective, but it's and that's great. So a lot of my ads, sometimes I'll put a specific workout as the ad itself. So I've just kind of moved platforms. So it's one of my workout videos. That's the ad. Hey, if you like this workout, 101 more here, for example. So that's just taking what I would have on a blog and just transferring it over and making it the ad itself. So again, force multiplier, because I only have to film that workout once rather than let me do a new workout every day or every week. But then I can take that workout. It's a good one. People enjoy it, and I can just get it in front of as many people as possible.
And your workout videos are really visually interesting too. Like flame is shooting out of things.
They can be, yeah. So it depends who's doing them. I have a video guy, John. If they look professional, it's not me doing them. It's the video guy. If they look like a 15-year-old on Instagram, then it's me doing the videos.
Do you
Good to
follow
know.
us on top form?
You know, I never, interesting Instagram. I gained like 36,000 followers, I think, on Instagram in the course of like 2 months, right?
That's interesting.
Except for it was useless. So I don't really go on Instagram much. I'm not much of somebody who enjoys social media. I use social media because it's effective. And this is where I think it's important to, it's easy. Instagram's a platform where you can get a lot of organic traffic easy with hashtags still. But that doesn't mean you're getting it in front of the right people. Which is, again, why advertising is such a force multiplier. Because I can say, if so long as you know who you want to get, you can find them on Facebook. I mean, down to the income level, down to the exact area where they live.
The car they drive.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
and then that's not even taking into account the voodoo that Facebook does with lookalike audiences and everything there.
Mhm.
So, I think there's always this lure to go to where you can get easy sources of exposure, but easy sources of exposure don't always result in customers. And I did a pretty substantial experiment with that with Instagram. So if you don't believe me, proof is always in the pudding, where people put their money where their mouth is. I went hard on Instagram, got those followers, and now I do nothing because it did nothing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that'll change. I'm keeping tabs on it. I'm not against it, but when
I think it depends on your market.
Sure, if
So-
you're going for the 15 to 18-year-old girrs and you're some type of like fashion,
Roy Moore has
Well,
a
that's-
huge Instagram.
We do
following.
fashion. We do fashion stuff all the time. So for designers, so one of their best outcomes of platforms is on Instagram because
that makes sense.
it's to the masses.
Right.
So if you're a local business looking for a local audience, Instagram might not be your best option
Mhm.
because it's not localized. But if you're selling to the masses, you're selling to people who are on there, that makes complete sense.
And also, there is a lot of opportunity for advertising revenue on Instagram because corporations don't know any better. that your audience is just very fleeting. They're not that interested. They see 200, 300,000 people. They might be able to pay you for some posts. I know some people do that. I don't like to do that. I think it's a little misleading, especially the people who are paying for advertising. But going back to force multipliers, as far as social media goes, the biggest one in my business was Facebook advertising, and still is to this day.
Mm-hmm. I want to get, and Alex, while I'm doing not another ad but a giveaway, you could be thinking, is there a strategic or tactical force multiplier? And it doesn't have to be in business. It could be in how you train or some way that you're teaching. Or whatever.
Sure.
So Leslie, we're not going to pull for this one yet, but we're going to be off next week because it's Christmas Eve. I
Mhm.
think.
Christmas Eve.
But the following week, New Year's Eve, we're actually doing a show.
Yep.
At which time we'll be drawing some great prizes, including, among others, a couple copies of the Tribe of Mentors. So the way to get this is to subscribe on YouTube channel, or give us a 5-star rating,
Yep.
or a written review on iTunes, which we have to give fabulous prizes for that because it's so hard.
Yep.
But
You
a
get
lot of
2
people thank
entries
you
for that.
Yeah, you get 2
2
entries in the
entries.
drawing for that. So this, I want to show everybody that I'm walking the talk here. So this is what the one looks like that I'm reading. This is my copy. So it's good. A couple of things today. We have a Success Technologies moleskin style journal.
Is that melatonin kicking in?
It really is. I'm starting to feel it. I was gazing into Pat's eyes. He became like a little jewel. And then I have a little pocket notebook that you can carry with you called Bright Ideas, which is kind of a Perry, by the way. Your buddy Perry, Marshall Perry's one. also.
Soon to be buddy. We'll see.
Soon to be
We'll see how
buddy.
this conversation
I'm working
goes.
it. I've
Yeah.
warned him. I told him about all
Good.
the things that
You,
might
you
happen.
set the expectations.
Yeah, appropriately though.
Good. Speaking of
I should warn
Instagram,
you
I do
about
want to
him.
mention, this might be interesting to talk about. Next thing is I'm doing my first. I got invited to do my first AMA on Reddit tomorrow.
What does that mean?
It's an Ask Me Anything. So
Oh, ask me.
this is
anything.
when
Do you know
you're
what Reddit
at least
is?
I do.
semi-famous because like Barack Obama did one and this and that. Now I'm just in the fitness form. I'm not like in the all of Reddit.
Are you doing it with Joey
Geopolitics.
Moore or solo?
Yeah.
Because both would be interesting.
When it comes to Reddit, he might still have some clout. But I'm taking this one. I'm taking this one solo. So it'll be interesting. This is and the reason I bring it up is if we're talking about force multipliers, one of the original force multipliers in my business was being very active in forums.
Yeah.
There you go, Alex.
I feel like a James Bond villain.
I should enjoy watching you die.
Was being very active in forums of where some of my potential customers were, which is a good like grassroots counterpart to what's this song's name?
Tucker.
Tucker. Tucker is a
Ouch.
good grassroots counterpart, Tucker,
Maybe that's it.
to the advertising. So I spent a lot of time in kettlebell forums where people were buying kettlebell workout programs and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how Reddit responds in general.
I want to hear more about Reddit because I haven't heard of it in so long.
I thought forums were dead, but
Craig
apparently
Miller loves Reddit,
not.
doesn't he?
I'm sure he does.
Craig Reddit, yeah. So my son-in-law is a Reddit man.
I
Yeah.
love Reddit.
So let's pull
You
one.
do.
Yeah, I know the guy who started it,
Well, then you'll have to come on the AMA tomorrow.
and he's really nice.
I want to hear more about that too. Producer Leslie. Oh, there's also another image on the back of a typewriter. It says "Take note." This is a fabulous gift. Very cool.
If I do
Who
say
made that?
so myself.
So let's pull for the bright ideas. Take note. You can just announce it.
Well, we should let our guests.
Yeah, let our guests.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
And then Alex, you could pull for the moleskin style.
Sure.
See how I did that?
Oh, Tyson.
Yay!
Tyson Franklin.
Tyson.
That's
Constantly
cool
having
art.
to ship stuff to, and so that's where. Well, fortunately, I'm shipping a tiny object to Australia.
All right. Well, this one's not Tyson. This is Laura Bernitsky.
Laura Bernitsky. Yay! Thanks,
In case
Laura.
anyone thinks
Thanks,
we're
Tyson.
playing favoritism.
So we know where to send these to.
Yep.
Mhm.
I need those though. Don't put
Yeah.
those back in.
Here, let me put that.
Ugh.
Oh my! Well, thank you everybody who has shipped. We have tons of people sharing and just to win prizes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Not because they care.
Laura just wanted the prize.
So
Yeah.
so we're gonna go over to you guys and come back around. But Alex, you first. One more
Force multiplier. You know, I would say it's hard to add to what Pat said because he really did cover it very well. But I would say that yeah, this may be more
I find a way
tactical or
usually.
strategic level. But for example, when I'm doing social media content, big thing that I've started doing because in many cases it will get shared, and you never really know exactly when, but sometimes it'll get shared a couple dozen times. So I always put a link in there to one of my opt-ins. So my focus is even when I'm sharing, free content, just trying to educate people, it's also giving them the opportunity to opt in and let them know what they're getting into. And then when they are on my list, I make regular mention of my inner circle, which is an email newsletter where I have like a new program, new recipes, new video tutorials every month. And so it's like the goal, I always keep the goal. I'm not just sending content out into the ether for no good reason. There's a purpose both for the people consuming it so that they learn, as well as for me so that I can earn.
And what's a site in case anybody wants to go take a look where they can go see what you're up to?
If anybody wants to take a look, you can look up Alex Salkin's 8-week kettlebell and bodyweight challenge. It should come up with a lead pages link so that you can download the opt-in itself. If you want to take a look at my general website, it's alexsalkin.com. My name is spelled a little bit funny. It's ALEKS and then SALK.
I misspelled it the first time.
Doesn't
matter.
I forgive you.
I corrected it, so
Oh, okay.
I accept your forgiveness.
Thank you.
Okay, so it could be a meta level, a strategic level, or a tactical force multiplier. Either Sam or Alex. I wanted to add.
Yeah, I would say Infusionsoft, not just because I sell it, but
But mostly.
Oh, we're back into an ad.
Right.
I see what's happening here.
Pat, I don't know if you use Infusionsoft or what
Aweber.
you're using, Aweber. So
I do. I use it. You sold it.
I
to me.
use it for you.
Yeah.
I wish you sold it to me. Some guy's still holding my commission who certainly didn't deserve to have it.
I'll forgive you.
A lot of forgiveness happening.
There is.
Yeah, there
I
is.
feel
Really
especially.
excited to see
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a tremendous piece of software, especially if you're running a small business, whether that be a fitness membership program for me, it's a publishing company, as well as a consulting company. For you, it's a law firm and a mastermind group. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it, from email automation, business automation in general. And then there's even more force multipliers that you can add onto that. We use something called Plus This, to basically when a person gets to a certain point in an email sequence where they're completing certain actions, we can send them and remove them from different Facebook audiences. So we're controlling the content they're seeing on Facebook that we're paying for via Infusionsoft, and based off the goals that they're completing, the marketing goals that they're completing. So it's definitely a powerful tool.
So Infusion, I put in some ways in a number of categories. So automation, I think of as a meta level force multiplier.
Yeah.
Taking things that we're repetitively doing and having a piece of code do them for us or coordinate who has to do them. And then I think of Infusion as like night vision goggles as a strategic sort of force multiplier, which is that you're going to be able to do automation and deliver emails and things. And then there are all these tactical things that you can do within Infusion. Not all of them are necessary or desirable, but and they'll vary from business to business and offer to offer. But there are things you can do like deliver email, drive them to a landing page, do well, you can with another piece of software, you could do a one-click upsell. Which
so that's coming to Infusionsoft.
Oh,
native.
good. You need to let me know when that happens.
It's about to.
It's about to.
It's
I could
been
show
a
you.
long time coming.
So I'm going to get to that piece. And Sam, if you want to do it, that's okay too. But I wanted to say that for most business people listening, 2018 could be miraculously altered for the better just with some form of upselling.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the big force multiplier is this idea of training. So we use a lot of technology-enabled automation, but we need people on the ground,
right? Because they're teaching classes.
Yeah, and so I'll say a talent I have is the ability, no matter what the martial art is to distill it into its basic components, and that makes it easier to train because we're not trying to overtrain. By train, I don't mean like physical training, but education of them. So it's the combination of, like when we create a process, it usually goes something like this. You break it down into 5 bullets, then you realize those 5 steps are insufficient for people to follow correctly. It becomes this 10-page thesis, and then you distill it back down to the 5 bullets that you really needed to tell them. So that has been a huge force multiplier in combination with the idea of using the skills and the language of persuasion to market to my teams, using those same kind of concepts and tactics that I know I constantly need to be selling them on the idea of what we do and being bought in to that mission. Is I don't need to just market to our customers, but I need to be marketing to the people within my organization already, so that they're always on board and we're all moving in the same direction.
I love that idea, and we've talked about this. We all of us here think about how do our customers, clients, and patients think about these things? What are the words they use to describe them? What are the problems they have that need immediate solution that they are underserved for? We think about all that stuff, and then we deliver it to clients and customers and patients so that they have this really good experience. Great. But if we don't have a team that's constantly engaging and trying to improve, so the idea of bringing your marketing skills to working with your team and training your team is a fabulous one. So I love that too. And then just to add to a little bit to what I was saying before, and then we can wrap up. Although, do we have questions that we need to
No,
answer?
just lots of likes and
Is
loves.
everybody fighting or encouraging one another?
No,
This
they're
isn't one of
actually
those shows?
listening today.
We have some shows where the audience kind of takes control,
Mhm.
and they're all usually at our expense.
Yes.
But they're all going back and forth and taunting us for one another. It's a very interesting dynamic. But the one step upsell is sort of symbolic. So you've all experienced this if you've shopped on Amazon or just about anywhere employing technology, where you buy something and the retailer says to you, oh, well, if you're interested in that, you might also be interested in this thing, and darned if you aren't. And so across internet selling generally, which is a gigantic sample and may not apply to you, what's the take rate on an upsell? Anybody know?
It's pretty high.
It's over 22%.
It's like 35%.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's super high.
I would have guessed around like 20, 25.
Yeah, so if we're not doing that in our own way, even if we're brick and mortar, if we haven't like cut a deal with the client or the patient or the customer where they say, I want to buy this thing, if we're not identifying what else might be useful to them, whether we've created it or not, and finding a way to get that to them. We're probably not doing the best job we could for that, and we're deliberately tamping down our profit margin on that client, customer, and patient. And by the way, multiple upsells helps you to identify a subset of your buyers who are the ones that are most interested in what it is that you have to sell. So you've got to be really good at identifying who wants what you've got.
Yes.
And I have too. I've really refined that. But within that sample are always somewhere between 5 and 20% of people who want to buy way more than we've offered them up front. And so the very thing that might offend some people will thrill others. So you have to find the right balance. Almost no one is offended, even if they don't take the offer, by one offer. Some businesses can get away with making 2 or 3 offers before they reach the point where they offend the other viewers, right? Although we noticed when we were completing the Christmas shop yesterday that Amazon was beating the drum to sell a credit card, and they were shameless about it. They were like, hey, do you want this credit card? Oh, you don't? What about that credit card? Would you like that one? The one you just said no to? I mean, it was unbelievable. It just went on. And it wasn't offensive, but it was unceasing. So
you were buying like 500 items, and it just showed up.
And the number, there were a lot of commas in the final bill, yeah. So I think they added the drone service just to this neighborhood as a result of last night's shopping. And Alex was very soothing because it would constantly say we cannot guarantee delivery before the 26th of December. And Alex was like, don't worry about it. They're just being cautious. So nobody's going to get Christmas presents.
Yeah.
Way to put that blame on me.
They actually
Not
moved
Amazon.
up the cutoff date, so now it's Monday.
So
Monday's
you
the
can
last
still
day you
order
can buy Christmas presents
tomorrow
that they're guaranteeing.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
all right.
usually
is.
it's like
I
the
need to get on
22nd,
Amazon.
and they
Yeah.
said
Everybody's like, let's wrap this thing up.
We're keeping people in top form.
That's right.
but isn't that interesting? Because usually it's like the 20th or something, and they said you can still order by the 22nd if it's 2-day shipping. Absolutely,
Right,
but they're
we were
not.
seeing that.
They're not
prepping
even
everybody
guaranteed.
for
If
that.
there's no, it says underneath no guarantee. I was like, oh,
Probably because there's probably way more buying than there was last
Than there
year.
was last year. I mean,
Yeah.
those statistics are astonishing. This, guys, has been awesome. Thank you for being here. Alex,
for having
welcome
us.
back.
Yeah,
You're going to have
thank you.
Alex on the show for another
Couple
3,
more.
I think. Yeah. Guys,
And
you were
then I
welcome.
disappear
anytime.
again
Love being here.
It's been a
to an
pleasure.
undisclosed location.
Well, you are, as you observe, going to take it over.
That is right. Yeah, we have to schedule that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you to all of our viewers. Remember to be in top form. Have a very happy holiday. Merry Christmas.
Brian Slater says Merry Christmas to you too.
Of course he does.
Happy Hanukkah, Brian.
Yeah.
Happy Hanukkah.
And, have a splendid 2018. We have more hacks and tools for boosting your revenue on our.
I think
on our
that
show.
was our most watched show ever. Was the last one, New Year's one that you and Sam did.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
So it's close to. 20
So we're going to have lots of prizes on that show. So
Start sharing and
yeah, start
subscribing.
sharing, and then let producer Leslie know. All they have to do is message in top form, correct, producer Leslie?
Or they
And-
can message me directly. Some people have been reaching out to email as well, so feel free.
And your email is
My email is lesdrinkwater at gmail.com.
or Gmail. Okay,
Or they can Leslie at
Leslie
at Tim.
and they should probably just give you their address when they let you know that they've done that, because that way if they win, we'll send it out. But sometimes people, that's an interesting criticism. Hey, I still haven't gotten my prize. Yeah, because you haven't given us your address. That would be helpful. And then when they do, miraculously, we send it out.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Remember to be in top